So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. It's brilliant to see so many of you. And thank you so much for giving up your Tuesday evening to come and hear what we have to say. Hopefully you'll find it enjoyable. And leading our session today will be Owen. He is head of our membership and programs department. And he also is, Owen, I believe you're deputy safeguarding lead now, is that right?
Safeguarding lead, designated safeguarding lead. Last time I checked, but yeah.
There we are, perfect. So yeah, without further ado, I'll hand over to Owen for the session.
Okay, thank you very much, Grace. Good evening, everyone. It's really nice to see so many of you here. This is a new venture for us to do a sort of online induction session for people who have joined or recently joined as volunteers each month, just to kind of, give you an overview of the organisation as a whole and hopefully sort of bridge that gap between the stuff that you'll start getting on emails from us and invites you'll start getting to things and your kind of local engagement with the group or the project or the centre that you're volunteering with. If I just you can all see my slides. I've got a few things. I'm aiming to run for no more than an hour or so. I will probably talk for just over half of that, and then hopefully there'll be a chance for anyone to resolve any questions or queries at the end. But I'll start running through some of the content that I've got here. As Grace said, we'll record it and we'll post the slides after the session as well. So if you wish, go back and go, God, I really wish I'd written that down. You can go back and find the links later to things that I'm talking about. So we will talk a little bit about the big picture, about who we are and what we are doing here and how we got here. We'll talk a little bit about the purposes for doing what we do and the outcomes that we're seeking to gain for our young members. We'll kind of focus a little bit on the different volunteering pathways that people have within Woodcraft Folk, and where you can go for support and what our kind of key expectations are. Particularly, I'm going to focus a little bit on our the safeguarding arrangements that you all need to be aware of as volunteers. Because whenever we get a bunch of volunteers together, it's good to make sure that everyone's on the same page, and you know where to go, where to get support in the event that you need advice or input from the team. Then we'll also just run through some kind of key contacts and where you go to get stuff sorted and some of the opportunities that are coming up to get involved with other events, training, and then, as I say, resolve your questions and comments. What I'd love to do first, if you are able to, I realise some of you are juggling dinner and small children and furry creatures and all sorts of other things, but if you're able to, I would love you to just either scan that little QR code with your phone, if you can point it at your screen, or go on your mobile device or your laptop to menti.com and put in that code. You should get taken to a couple of quick slides, which will give you a couple of questions. If you could answer that so I can get a sense of what you're all doing and what your motivations and interests are. And if I'm really lucky, we ought to be able to see you popping up your answers in real time. So give you a moment to do that, and then I'll pop over to the answers, and hopefully we can see it all miraculously working. If you're not able to, it doesn't work, then never mind. But it's good to get a bit of a flavour. Right, let's see. Has anyone managed to get there yet? Let's have a look.
Oh, I think I need a password.
Oh, you shouldn't do.
Mentimeter. Maybe I've got
No, don't go to Mentimeter. Go to menti.com. It's like a front end, back end thing.
Okay, Menti. I believe I've typed in menti.com and it took me to Mentimeter.
Oh.
But other people might be better at it than I am.
David, I'll send you a link directly on the message.
There you go.
Yeah, sure. Oh, via notes on here.
I'll send it via the chat on Zoom. Or yeah, on this Zoom call.
Yeah.
There's a chat on Zoom?
It should pop up in a moment once I send it. Bear with me.
Like an actual... Wow, that's new. Ah.
There we go. So, I mean, we're seeing already a real mix. So some people who were in Woodcraft as a kid, some people who've been dragged in because their children are already involved, some people who've seen an advert, some people who've come in order to meet new people or found some kind of affinity between the ethos that we talk about and their own values, which is great. Real mix of stuff there. I think the other thing I would love to find out is what role you feel that you volunteered for. So I think if you go back to your device, you should see. There you go. Someone's found it already. Fantastic. I'd be really interested in whoever's the something else. Just put in the chat if you're able what the something else is, because I'm intrigued now.
I think I pressed it by mistake.
That's fine.
I think I selected both by mistake. I group helper and something else, but just
Excellent. I might hold you to something else. Okay. So, I mean, from that, I mean, this sort of kind of the distribution that I would expect, that the majority of people are coming forward to be group leaders and helpers, you know, working directly with our young members, which I guess for a young people's organisation is kind of what we would hope. But also some people coming to do that vital kind of back office-y group and district admin, so whether that's treasurers or safeguarding leads or people who are really good at organising rotas or managing WhatsApp groups, and some people coming forward to offer to support a specific camp or event. I'm guessing that might be people coming to volunteer for Venture Camp. Wave vaguely if that's correct, or stick it in the chat if you're volunteering for something else. So we've got, you know, one of our larger camps going on this summer, and we'll be recruiting lots of volunteers to volunteer for a short period in the run up to that, and then the week of actually being there to be. Oh, and Pete says the an Easter camp that's going on. So coming forward to volunteer to support. Is that a district camp or a regional camp, Pete?
It's Bristol one. I don't know.
Oh, right, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
that's great. So, I mean, I guess the first thing to say is thank you for putting yourselves forward for that role, whatever it is, by, you know, giving up your time, but also giving your time in support of something not just for, you know, other people's children, but for children who will benefit hugely from the experiences that we're able to give them. You're doing something that is, you know, altruistic, but also quite radical. You know, it is increasingly a radical act to give up your time to do stuff for other people, and organisations like us would be nowhere without that. And we really appreciate the support that we gain from our volunteers, and we would not be able to deliver any of the opportunities for our children and young people without people prepared to put themselves in front of our young people or behind the people that are in front of our young people to support and provide them with the infrastructure to do those volunteering jobs safely and effectively. But that's really good. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to my original slides now. But thank you for sharing that little snapshot of where you're all at. So, oops, sorry. I suspect some of you will know some of this already, but it never does any harm to go back to basics and make sure that you're all aware of some of the kind of key points of the genesis of this organisation. So we've been going for nearly 100 years. We were founded in 1925. The short version is that we share a lot of our DNA with the Scouting movement. The slightly longer explanation is that after the First World War, in that interwar period, a group of young, idealistic, utopian young people involved in the Scouting movement saw at the time something that they felt was about the machinery of empire and potentially, preparing the next generation of the armed forces, and wanted something that moved away from that and celebrated a different vision of a world at peace. That was an idea that from the very early days chimed with the ideals of the cooperative movement and the trade unions. So there was a kind of utopian socialist kind of bent to our organisation from the very outset, and via a number of interesting diversions, a small group of young people from working class young people from South London broke away from the Scouting movement and founded Woodcraft Folk as an alternative, a cooperative, a progressive, and peaceful alternative to the militaristic uniformed youth organisations that they found at the time, but still with that same ideal of getting working class young people out of the city and away from the smoke and the noise and experiencing the wonders of nature and all of those things, but very quickly also making connections beyond the UK, and forming part of a global family of progressive youth organisations. Initially across Europe, but ultimately across the world. And you can see here we've got the one of the first bits of funding we ever got from the cooperative movement, £5 to go and spend on camping equipment in the Royal Arsenal Co-op Society's department store in Woolwich, which was the first of many such acts of generosity and solidarity from the co-op movement, which continue right up until the present day. If you're interested in the historic origins of Woodcraft Folk and our early days, there is an entire website where some of our volunteers have been tirelessly digitising some of the archives that are held at the Institute of Education in London. And there's some fantastic stuff in there. So these are, for example, the early newsletters and the newspaper that was printed on camp on our first international camp in 1937, just outside Brighton, the Republic of Children, they called it. And lots of people have used that archive as a resource for their own research, whether they're researching the history of youth movements or whether they're researching visual culture or social history in any other respect. And there's definitely scope for you to use lots of that to explore with your young people who we are and where we come from. Do take a look at the heritage site where there's new stuff being added all the time to put what we do and where we do in some historical context. Today, we aspire to be a cooperative youth movement that's open to everyone. We would say that one of the things that makes our model different is that we work very hard to help our young people to take the lead and to change their world through the activities that they do, whether that's at a weekly group night or whether that's through our camps and residentials. So, we're not about picking, one or two young people to be, patrol leaders or sixers or whatever you want to call them. We will try and work with young people so that they all recognise their strengths and they all have the opportunity to lead, whatever that means for them and whatever that, that feels age appropriate, as they grow through our age groups. Those activities that we do in our group nights are trying to develop their understanding of and a wider respect for the world around them and the communities that they're part of. But ultimately, they're not going to be coming back to us if they're not having fun. And what we aim to do is, inject that level of serious fun that enables them to explore the big ideas that are going to matter to them and are going to be, the values and the ethos that they take through their life, but through things that are in the moment, fun, and about building strong relationships, not just with their peers, not just with older young people in their group and district, but also with the adult volunteers and helpers who are part of their group. Because we believe that our cooperative and utopian ethos is really, really important and an essential part of our programme, and so it is. But all the evidence and all the research on any youth work programme tells us that the most important thing is that young people have an opportunity to build a relationship with a non-parent adult, with someone outside of their own family who respects them and listens to them. And that's the difference that a youth work programme makes. So by blending those two, we feel we've got a winning combination of that tried and tested youth work approach, along with an ethos about changing the world and rebuilding it as we would like to see it. And that's what we do when we come together, whether we're coming together in a group night in a drafty church hall, or whether we're coming together creating effectively a small community for a period of a weekend, a week when we go away camping. We're trying to blend that ethos. In terms of our scale and scope, so across the UK, we have nearly 200 groups across our 5 age ranges. I'd say we have our 3 core age ranges of Elfins, Pioneers and Venturers, which span from 6 up to 15. And then we have a smaller number of groups working specifically with what we call our wood chips, our kind of 3 to 5 year olds. And then a looser network of groups and individuals who are in the what we call the DF, the District Fellowship age range, who are our young adults aging from sort of 16 up to 20. That group network stands on the back of around 3,000 volunteers and financial supporters and donors, roughly 5,000 young members filling those groups at any one time. And then we have a much wider reach in terms of numbers, in terms of bums on seats, through our outdoor centres and campsites, and we have 5 of those across the UK. They're well used by Woodcraft Folk groups, but they're also well used by other uniformed organisations, by independent youth projects, by other charities, by schools, by colleges, by Duke of Edinburgh expeditions. And so therefore many people, I mean, something like we were running through earlier, I think last year, something like 20,000 individual bed nights across that centres network. So there's many more young people who have an opportunity, a taste of the way that we do things through engaging with one of our centres or our campsite down at Bidlins. We also, through that international family that I was mentioning earlier, have the opportunity to take our young people on international exchanges. So we will have some young people visiting an international camp hosted by our sister organisation in Finland in summer this year. We've previously sent young people to the winter schools and Easter residentials that happen at the Kurt Loewenstein Centre in just outside Berlin, in our sister organisation in Germany. So with almost at any given moment, there are young people from Woodcraft Folk coming and going to Europe or the global south for short or long-term exchange or volunteering projects, which is a fantastic opportunity to enable our young people to kind of have that experience at a formative point in their young adulthood and really consolidate what they've learned from about an international outlook from being part of our group network. And as I mentioned earlier, we have our large-scale camps for young people. So last summer we delivered Common Ground, which was a camp for over 2,500 young people, or 2,500 people in all, in Northamptonshire for 10 days. This summer we'll be bringing about 400 or 500 young people down to Biblins in the southwest for our Venturer camp. And these are really the times when we build that model community, that temporary utopia, and wonder what the world would be like if we organised it all along our lines. If we built an internationalist, cooperative community, and we lived like that all the time, what would it be like? And those are the biggest things that we do, and there will be one of those rolling around every couple of years. So I hope that in however long you stay with Woodcraft Folk, you'll get the opportunity to experience that, because it really is the time for me that it all falls into place. That we go into a field that's empty when we get there, and we build a small functional community, and we live there together in harmony for a week or more, and you come away from it knowing that actually we have got young people across our organisation who will go out and make change in their own community and the wider world. Okay. So, oops, there we go. So I'm sure many of you mentioned that it was our aims and ethos that brought you to Woodcraft Folk in the first place. But for anyone who's still in any doubt, our aims and principles on which the organisation was founded are firstly and foremostly the idea of education for social change. We're not just helping people understand the world, we're helping them to change it and understand how they can take a part in changing it. We're instilling an idea that cooperation is inherently a better approach than competition. We're looking to build an understanding and an awareness and a commitment to equality and inclusion, an international outlook, an environment where children are taught about their rights and taught to speak up when those rights are being infringed, and to protect the rights of others, to build a world at peace where we look for a conflict-free future, and we look for peaceful ways to resolve our differences, and we look for sustainable stewardship of one world, and that's where our environmental work and our outdoor education really marry up. I think it's worth just sharing the detail of some of the way we articulate the outcomes that we're looking to meet with our young members, because it's easy to sort of sit there and talk about big ideas of peace, cooperation and unlimited rice pudding, but actually what does that mean if you're sitting with a group of 6 and 7 year olds? And we have this idea of our outcomes matrix, which kind of talks about, well, what does that mean if you are an elfin? What does that mean? What does international cooperation mean if you are 10 years old in Birmingham? And it's just a guide, and it's just a sort of a little think piece that some experienced volunteers put together to try and build that bridge and aid the planning that volunteers will be doing in their own groups or their own projects or the workshops at camps and things like that. And I'd urge you to go and have a look at this for the age group that you are intending to work with, or the area of our work that you're particularly involved in. But you can see that, for example, well, what does education for social change look like if you're an elfin, if you're 7, 8, 9 years old? Well, maybe it's about participating in decision making. And that might be as small as, what game are we going to play this week at the start of the session? It might be about just learning to treat other people as they would want to be treated. It might be international friendship, might just be about beginning to recognize that within your own community, within your own sphere, there are people who have come from different cultures or backgrounds or have different lived experience. And the more that we can structure activities that will open young people's eyes to that and enable them to talk about and discuss critically their perception, the more we're setting those foundations And then when they become older, when they become pioneers, then we go a little bit further. We might talk about not just the different cultures and different backgrounds that there are in our community, but what's brought them here. And we might start to introduce ideas about migration and refugees and conflict, and marry that up with I'll talk about peace, and I'll talk about the impact of war on communities in the global south, for example. So you can see it sort of builds a logical progression, and the longer young people stay with us, the more depth they will gain to that, and the more understanding they will gain of those big ideas. But we're never seeking to overwhelm, never seeking to overload our young people. Instead, wanting to build on their understanding and be led by them, and led by the age and stage that they're ready for. And you, as the people working directly with those young people, if that's your role, will be the experts in that, and you'll know what you can do and how far you can go, and listen to the feedback from the young people. But yeah, as I say, woodcraft.org.uk/outcomes will get you to that resource. And then you can start to explore the activities and games and resource packs that we've developed over the years, full of activities that are designed to kind of draw out those ideas and themes in an age appropriate way. And there's there is no set curriculum. There is no you must do this followed by this. It's very much the thing that you're there to do with the other volunteers that you're working alongside, is respond to the need and the interest in your group, respond to the expertise that you've got as individuals, and put together a programme that's broadly underpinned and underlined by these themes, but responds to what's going on with your young people and in their community. And then, I mean, we can go on. But, is anyone working directly with venturers? Is anyone here to work with venturers? Anyway, so we talk about what that looks like for each of the kind of each of the core age ranges. But that's not to say that venturer groups don't need to go back right to basics every now and again and remember about listening to people and taking turns. So it's again, never supposed to be at all prescriptive. Does it work? Undoubtedly. We've got really strong evidence from our young people that what we do has an impact on them. We've got some nice quantitative statistics. So 85% of our young people say it helps them make friends. They learn new skills. 3/4 of them say that they feel that they've had experiences that will benefit them in future life, and 2/3 of them agree that it builds their confidence. But we've also got the anecdotal stories of young people who have really changed and been on a journey through the opportunities that we've put in front of them, and the opportunities that they've been exposed to through being part of our groups. And I hope in time you'll discover some of those stories and be part of some of those stories for yourself. But it's great to know that the volunteers that we are working, that are making our group and district infrastructure work, are having such a demonstrable impact on the lives of young people, and coming out of a phase where some of our young people have had an almost unimaginable disruption to their education, to their socialization, and to their peer groups, and to their friendships, and to their family life. This stuff has never been more important. We are acutely aware that some of our young people are really seeming to be a couple of years behind in terms of kind of key areas of kind of social and emotional development, and structured activities that help them to develop those soft skills in a really structured and safe and supported way have never been more important. That's something that's constantly on our mind. So as I said, without you lot, we couldn't do any of what we do. We stand as a voluntary youth organisation. Without volunteers, we would be nothing. But that volunteering takes a wide range of forms. It might be very intensive people holding groups together week in, week out, or it might be helping once a term. It might be going along to a working weekend at one of our centres every now and again and doing some practical manual labour that enables our young people to have a safe and enjoyable time when they go away. But however we're doing it, we're building our own skills and knowledge, and we're sharing those with others. We're sharing the load, we're practicing what we preach in terms of being a cooperative community where people work together and support each other. It's a fantastic opportunity to get active physically or mentally, and to make new connections with people who share your values, whether that's in your community or whether that's right across the world. And most importantly, have fun. And if we're not making volunteering an enjoyable and fun experience for people, then we're getting something wrong. But I think most of our volunteers would agree that most of the time they're having a level of enjoyment for themselves, as well as providing enjoyable experiences or facilitating them for our young people. Hopefully, you're all somewhere upon a journey. You will have had some kind of contact with your local group or the project or the district that you're going to be volunteering for. You might have already agreed what that role looks like. You might be about to start going along and going to taster sessions and finding out what it's all like in practice. You will have registered as volunteers. You will have signed up to our group system probably. Depending on your role, you will probably be somewhere in the middle of some screening process, whether that's references or whether that's a background check, so a DBS or a PVG check if you're in Scotland. I'm hoping that you will be supported by the volunteers you're working with locally to read and note key documents such as safeguarding plans and risk assessments, and at some point to think about what training and support you need in your role, but also to connect you to that local infrastructure, whether that's the person that you can go to have all your questions answered, whether that's where to go to answer your questions. So if that's not things that you feel that have happened yet, then by all means, make contact with your local, your colleagues locally. If you've got a district coordinator or a volunteer coordinator in your group, that would be a first port of call. If you encounter any difficulty resolving any of those, or you've got questions at the end of this that aren't answered, drop us a line and we can try and join you up and connect you to the right people or the support that you need. But as I say, depending on your role, that will be happening in different orders and different speeds. So I think that's just to bear in mind that these are the steps along the way. I'm going to stop there and just say, has anyone got any questions or thoughts or comments they want to throw in at this point?
Owen, just to say, Emma messaged me directly and has said that both of their kids are now adventurers, as you were asking earlier.
Oh, right. Okay. Fantastic. And booked a venturer camp? Maybe? That would be good. Okay. I just wanted to go on to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we keep children and young people safe, because having said, without a volunteer workforce, we are nothing. A key part of that is the role that volunteers have in keeping our young people safe and running safe provision across all of our groups and projects. There's lots of things that we do. Sorry, that was supposed to animate and I got too keen. So it's not just about you all getting pieces of paper that say you haven't got a criminal background. It's not just about having a piece of paper that says that we've risk assessed the activity, but it's about a whole picture, a whole series of different activities that we do, not just to stop children coming to harm, but to promote an environment in which they are held and their rights are respected and they're allowed to flourish and supported to grow and develop in the most positive way possible. And one of the things that I hope that you'll have conversations with your local contacts, your local leads about is, what do we do? How do we make that work within our group, within our setting? What are the things that I need to be aware of as a volunteer? Is it, making sure that I'm not left in a one-to-one situation with a young person, or making sure that my fellow volunteers aren't put in that situation? Is it that I'm the person who's responsible for doing a risk assessment or following a risk assessment for the activities that we do? Is it that I'm the person who's marking people in when they come into the venue so that we know who we've got in the room in case we have to evacuate the place? Is it that I'm here to make sure that there's an appropriate adult-to-child ratio, or to work one-to-one with a child that we've identified needs additional support or one-to-one within the group setting? So you'll all have a different part to play, some of which will be following these kind of universal approaches, and some of which will be much more tailored to your setting. But it all goes together to create an environment in which people can be supported and can flourish. There are some things that everybody needs to be aware of. So we have our code of behaviour, which is a simple set of guidelines about how we work together as a group of adults to provide a safe environment for our young people, that I'd urge you all to have a look at if you've not already. Everybody should have a local safeguarding lead, so either that's somebody for their group, or it would be a named safeguarding lead for the project or the activity centre that you're working with, who should be your point of contact for any concerns or queries you've got. And as I mentioned earlier, those two key documents, the local safeguarding plan, which says how we run ourselves safely to make sure that everybody's safe and happy, and a risk assessment to make sure that the stuff that we do is safe. How do we stop people from falling over and hurting themselves? How do we stop random members of the public from walking in off the street? What do we do to make it work? So for your own project group setting, if you're not already aware of those things, or you aren't already discussing the impact of those things on your roles, these are things that it would be really good for you to go out and research and find out about, or ask your peers about, before you start volunteering directly with our young people, or before you start taking on more responsibility in that setting. And the idea is that actually between those things, that should provide the majority of our volunteers with most of what they need most of the time to deal with most of the situations that you'll come across. That said, it only works if we share the information that we have appropriately. And as a volunteer, the most useful and powerful thing you can do to protect our children and young people is to share any and all concerns, even if you think it's nothing. The idea is of having those local safeguarding leads is that they will put all the pieces of the jigsaw together, if necessary, talking to other agencies, so that we can make sure that we're doing the best by the children and young people. So at any time in your volunteering with us, always share with your local safeguarding lead. If you're worried about an individual child, if you see another volunteer or a parent or carer behaving inappropriately, or if you see volunteers who aren't abiding by our policies and procedures, you need to share that. And that's not getting anybody into trouble, that's not adversarial, it's part of us working as a cooperative community and holding each other supportively to account and helping each other do better, as well as making sure that we're putting ourselves as an organisation in the best place with the best information to make judgments in the best interests of our children and young people, which is the fundamental guiding principle. Coming to round off now then, effectively, the two things that we would love you to save to your kind of address book is all your queries about your membership, your volunteer status, your training, admin, getting to grips with group, queries about your DBS or PVG if you're in Scotland. Membership at woodcraft.org.uk will get through to Grace or Leanne, who are our member and groups managers, or to Rosie, who works with them to support and provide administrative support to that team. And that's always the best place to get a query resolved that you've not been able to resolve with your local volunteers. If you've got questions or concerns or want pointing to the right bit of guidance about anything to do with the safety and well-being of our children and young people, then the Safeguarding At email address is the one to use. That will get through to me or another member of my team, and you usually get a very swift response from that to support you with any concerns that you feel that you need to escalate. And you should also use that if you feel that you're not able to, or you're not getting the response that you need from volunteers locally. With those two contacts in your back pocket, you should have everything that you need to resolve any issues that you come across. But similarly, we're here, we're available on the phone, and if you phone our main head office number in vaguely broadly office hours, you'll have the opportunity to talk to the automatic voice and select options to get through to the right person. We're a small staff team supporting lots of volunteers, but we're always happy to support and guide if you're feeling at all unsure or in difficulty. Just coming to the end then, to think about more opportunities to get involved or to get a bigger perspective. I realise you've all done brilliant things by coming forward to give up your time locally. There is, if your circumstances or if your available time allows, I'd urge you to do anything that you feel able to connect to people from outside your group and district as well, because actually when volunteers from different groups come together, there's fantastic cross-pollination, there's fantastic meeting of minds, and there's fantastic communities that emerge from that. And some of us, go on to make lifelong friends and so on through the connections that we've made with people in other parts of the country who have got that shared experience. For young volunteers, so for young adults up to about 25, we've got a young leader training weekend that's part of one of these international projects I mentioned, which is at our Highgate Centre in West Yorkshire, coming up on at the end of this month. The same weekend, there's a working weekend at our Darsham Centre in Suffolk. This is the one that's a working railway station, and we have the station house as a bunkhouse for children and young people. We have, again, another double booking. So depending if you're in the north or the south, there's a group residential training weekend. So if you're a new group and you want to know how can we run a safe or effective residential weekend, you can book into our group training at Lockabrook on the 14th, 16th of April. It's the end of the Easter holidays up here. That same weekend at Biblin's campsite in the Wye Valley, just by Simmons Yacht, we are building Camp Kudu for the summer, which is our standing camp. So we're putting up bell tents and erecting the kitchen and the marquees that will stand there for groups around through to the autumn. I think someone said they were in Bristol. We've got a one-day leader training happening on the 18th of June at the YHA down in Bristol. There'll be an opportunity for some face-to-face training in the southwest, and also in southwest from the 5th to the 12th of August is Venturer Camp, which will involve most every venturer and quite a few of the DFs from around the country. And that will be an incredible opportunity for our young people to come together and have a one-off experience. The theme this year is all about mythology. So if you're got a background in classics or Norse mythology or something, then the team definitely want to hear from you. And right at the moment, they're looking for lots of people to fill lots of one-off roles. So if you have a look at our website, if that appeals, there's lots of opportunities to get involved in the planning or the delivery of that. We also try and keep up a programme of online events as well, in addition to these monthly inductions for new people. We have each month we will have a themed a themed webinar on something to do with our safeguarding arrangements to help upskill and ensure everybody's confident in their role. So this month we're going to be looking at basically training the trainers, so how to run training on our safeguarding processes with your local group, with your peers as a volunteer. I and Lauren, who's our development manager, will be launching some new guidance around camping and running residentials in a Woodcraft way in the second week of April. And then the April safeguarding webinar will be answering questions and frequently asked questions around member screening and DBS and PVG and who needs what and how we go about it. So those are the next few that are coming up. But do take a look at the events calendar on our website. There's always opportunities to get involved, whether that's volunteering at centres or coming along to training or coming to webinar. It's one of the key ways that you're going to connect with your peers, as well as hear the latest news from around the organisation. That was it. Thank you very much for your attention and for giving up a chunk of your Tuesday evening. Very happy to respond to any general questions now. I'm also really happy if anyone wants to drop me a line after this. My email address is down there. If there's something you'd like me to go into a little more detail or anything that's worrying you after something I've said. Yes, Grace, have we got any questions or comments on chat that I didn't address?
No, we haven't had anything else.
Okay. Great. Bex, yes. Unmute yourself. Do chip in.
Thank you. Oh, and that was brilliant. Thank you so much. That was really informative and all really helpful. It was just a quick question about the residentials in April. I mean, is it, I think quite a few of us on here have children. Is it possible to bring children with us, or is it an adults only?
Yeah. So the idea with that was that it would be leaders bringing a small number of children with them, so that we kind of learning by doing. And yeah, so absolutely, it will work much better if you bring your children, because then we'll have, I hesitate to say someone to practice on, but you know what I mean.
I think that's a very good way of saying it. I'm happy to use my child as practice. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can drop you a line about that event specifically, because I know, sorry, for background, Bex is about half a mile away from me in South Manchester, so we're adjacent groups. Yeah, I can certainly check in with you about whether that's something, because it's only about an hour and a half from Manchester anyway, so it might be a very good opportunity for your group. Cool. Anyone, anything else they wanted to share or raise or?
No? Okay, all quiet on the Western Front. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming this evening. And as Owen said earlier, just to reiterate, we value your time a lot. So thank you so much for giving up your Tuesday evening to be with us. And yeah, if you have any follow-up questions or queries at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch with Owen on his email address handily on screen, or I'll pop the membership's email address in the chat as well, so everyone has that. But if not, thank you so much, everyone, and yeah, have a good night.
Brilliant.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Thank you all. I look forward to meeting at least some of you around a campfire in real life sometime.
Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. Really appreciate that.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.